All right, George Jerjian, thank you so much for joining us on the Happiest Retirees podcast.
Delighted, Ryan. Good to be on your show.
So let's start out. I want to start out just on the basics. What is your definition of retirement?
Oh, wow. Um, Retirement, I think, is a word that's past its sell-by date. It's a ghost of the past that people have invested in, and therefore it's there. You've got the savings, you've got the money, you've got the whole plan, but the financial plan, but you have no idea where you're going with it. So, I almost think that you have to take the word retirement out of your language and talk about what are you going to do in this next chapter of your life. And that way you pivot your mind to doing something new, something creative. I even go as far as to say that, you might even need a new identity,
Yeah.
right? I don't say identity lightly here because who we were in our workspace, once we leave that work, one of the things I say is that if I could sort of didn't finish that sentence, but what I'm trying to get at is we all know the first casualty in war is the truth,
Mm,
right? We've
interesting.
seen it time and time again. We even seen it with the
Yeah.
Ukraine-Russia war now.
Yeah.
You know, um, but the first casualty in retirement is identity. Who am I now? And what we don't realize is that if we don't create a new identity, right, and purpose comes right next to it as well. But identity is, if you don't have an identity, your internal system starts to break down. Mental health issues, emotional health issues, etc. Why? Because when you don't have an identity, the question is, who am I? And
Yeah.
if I can't answer that, who am I, my whole social standing is compromised,
Yeah. Absolutely.
including within our own families. The power dynamics change. But if you create a new persona, a new identity, a better suited identity for who you really are, right? And that's why it's important to go into an inner journey. But we can unpack that later. So my definition of retirement is it's an obsolete word.
Mhm.
I'd rather see words like rewirement or refirement.
Yeah.
But
Tell
that
me. So,
answers your question.
oh yeah, absolutely. And I had seen you use some of those words. So you think just because you're like gonna refire your engines and your rewire like who you think you are type of thing?
Yeah, I think the plan that we are offered, is a financial plan,
Yeah.
and we all, particularly our generation, we all saved. Well, not all of us, but some of us saved in the hope that we would have a good retirement.
Right.
Had no idea what that retirement would look like, right?
Yeah.
The advertising world painted some wonderful sailing boats, some good martinis, some beaches,
Yeah.
some great locations, but that's a vacation. That's not retirement.
Right. Yeah.
And Einstein said, if you want solutions to problems, look at nature. And in nature, I looked at it. In nature, nothing retires. It's either growing or dying. So once you start to realize that if you choose the way of retirement, the traditional retirement, you're tiptoeing to a quiet death.
Right.
Effectively, everything starts to shut down slowly but surely. I mean, how many vacations can you go on? How many golf sessions can you have a week? You come to the point once the honeymoon period's gone, you're now in a trap.
Yeah. It's interesting because it's still hard to sometimes not get tricked into thinking, "No, if I just didn't have a job, I'd be on the beach and that's all I need," right? but it's
because
like
that's a
a
great place to
mirage.
be, isn't it? It is a
Yeah,
mirage.
yeah.
I want to be in love every single minute of my life, but it doesn't work that way, does it? It's like it's
No, no.
nice, but it doesn't work that way.
I
It's
guess I
not to say
haven't.
we shouldn't try.
You're okay, I'm willing to give it a shot, yeah. Uh,
Yeah, right.
so in your mind, is retirement isn't really like a binary thing, right? Where it's like, I'm this and now I'm this. It's more like you're growing and you're changing and you're reinventing?
Yeah. Now, it's not all bad news. In fact, there's a good news. There's great news, not good news, great news, I think, at the other end of it. So let me just explain. Let me unpack this for you. If you go from your work to retirement and do the traditional route, okay, um, your brain starts to get foggy because you're not using it anymore. You've
Yeah.
stopped, right? And we live in an ocean of motion. Nothing retires in life. So if you choose that to slow down, you may get to the point where you can't come back from. Once
Oh,
your
yeah.
cognitive abilities start to disappear, right? You're not going to find new employment
Right.
and you're
Is it like
losing
your
touch.
brain atrophies or something, or what do you think?
Well, sure, it's like a
Yeah.
muscle. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not the brain is not a muscle, but as a sort of a storyline, if you like. Yeah, if you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah.
Now it's a question of pivoting instead of going in a linear fashion from working life to retirement. It's a walk in the park. Just nothing changes. You're just going to continue doing less. But that's a linear thing. And really, what I'm suggesting is that old age is the crown of life. It should be the best part of our lives.
Yeah.
That's what I'm fighting for. That's what I want to do with my life. Okay. And I'm slowly working towards that. So
Yeah.
I have a purpose. I have a new identity. I'm not the same person I was when I was in my working life.
Yeah.
I was a very different person. I've been on an internal journey to discover more of me, right? My little identity, my
Yeah.
ego, my persona is just one that I happen to have chiseled with great care over the years. But I've had to
Yeah.
jettison that. I've had to and we don't like to throw things that we've worked on for years. But this one, if you stick with it, it's going to take you down.
Yeah.
So you need to release it and you need to have a new beginning. And nobody wants to start new, especially when you've got years of experience and now you're a big honcho, wherever business
Oh,
you were in.
thank you. Oh, you don't mean me.
No. What I
Okay.
mean is that, and also, I think people who are very high in the hierarchy in terms of how much they're earning, who they are, the C-level board people, they will struggle with this because and not necessarily all of them, but a good many of them will struggle because you almost need to go through an ego death
Mm.
to
Oh, yeah.
recreate yourself. And so, what I tell my clients is to make this journey effective and worthwhile because it's a rite of passage, right? Retirement is a rite of passage.
Yeah.
Just like adolescence into adulthood. Your working life comes to a close. You're now into this next stage. In our culture, we don't have anything pointing us, showing us how to do this. But it's a rite of passage. And so we have to almost recreate that rite of passage and create a part of us that hasn't been expressed for years. I think it was Dick Schwartz, a California psychologist, talks about no bad parts, meaning that there's different parts of us that have been, if you like, at loggerheads for years. because one part of us is now reigning supreme, and maybe the soft side or the light side has been crushed over years. And it's not to say, and he effectively has this internal family system where you almost have to bring in this other part of you that you've been ignoring for most of your life
Yeah.
and incorporating it in your life. And therefore, and the sum is bigger than the whole, it's just makes you a bigger, better person because you're now using parts of yourself that you were kind of ignoring.
Yeah.
Um, and another thing I talk about is that retirement is a crisis in the true sense of the word. Crisis doesn't mean, oh my God, the world is collapsing, we got to run for the hills. No, that's not what crisis means. Crisis means simply a turning point.
Ah.
That's all it means. It's a turning point. And it allows us to rethink how we want to live our lives in this last part of our lives. And what I tell clients is don't wait for your deathbed to start thinking, oh my God, I should do that. Too late.
Right.
Retirement is the bell ringing saying, last orders, last orders for drinks, right? Yeah, this is the time to reinvent yourself. And so I tell my clients to take a gap year. And in that
Mm.
vein, I decided that I had not taken a gap year. So I took a gap year a couple of months ago and went around the world in 80 days.
Oh my gosh. That's where you were, I think, when I was talking to you recently, right? So
That's
how
correct.
I
Yes.
want to hear more about that. How did that come about and where did you go? I guess
Okay.
around the world.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'd always, I mean, first of all, I loved that book when I was a young man. I read it and I fell in love with it. And that's the kind of travel I wanted to do. But as you sort of grow up and you sort of learn about money, you suddenly realize all these things cannot be done.
Right, right.
There are more important things that must be done, right?
Right.
And so
Yeah.
we kill our dreams slowly but surely.
Yeah.
And we become upstanding citizens and we do the right thing, even if we hate it or whatever. And now I'm trying to test stuff that I didn't dare do when I was much younger. But actually, I was not meant to do it until now because now is the right time. So I have no regrets about my past.
Mhm.
So I decided I'm going to take a gap year and I wanted to make it epic. Epic, not just for my business, but also for myself. And but primarily for myself. And that's why I didn't use social media while I was on my round the world in 80 days.
Not at all.
Now, no, because my business hat would have said, damn it, you got to monetize this,
Yeah. Yeah. This is
right?
great footage. Get or what something, yeah.
Exactly. But you know what would have happened? It would have been all show and no substance. And
Mhm.
I needed substance.
Yeah.
And so I journaled every day.
Oh.
I have 2,300 photographs of my journey and countless number of videos. And I'm looking at a book and 5 videos for each country that I visited
Oh my
when I was
gosh.
circumnavigating the world.
Amazing. It's like by being disciplined, you hit pay dirt. You got what you needed, and now you could use social media.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now I have material I can use. But primarily, it was my journey, and I wanted to make this my journey for me,
Yeah.
primarily. And then, second, to use it as material to help others through this. And so I went to South Africa. Well, this is going to end up being a travel interview. I think you may want to rejig your
That's okay.
question. I'm
It
throwing it back to you, Ryan.
Yeah, we don't have to go through everything if you wanna, but
Right.
if South Africa was the highlight, I'd like to hear a little bit about it.
Okay. I'll give you highlights very quickly of all of them. South Africa was a highlight because, first of all, I ended up doing a 5 day safari, which was glorious. And I have images in my mind, not just videos and photos, that I hope to remember when I'm deep in Alzheimer's or dementia. Um, I want to have these visuals in my
Yeah.
head. So
Yeah.
even if I'm gaga, I'm still got screen time on my in my head, right?
Yeah.
So South Africa was the safari was a huge highlight. I saw visited Robben Island, Mandela's jail for
Really?
26 years. Yeah, for me, it was the kind of lesson that I wanted to learn from there is that you know people bitch about their lives when they still have it really good. They have
Yeah.
no idea what a bad time is. And here's a guy who went to jail, for political reasons, not criminal reasons technically. Spent 26 years, and he comes out and he's not bitter. He's not resentful. He's not angry. So my thing there was, what can I learn from this?
Yeah.
So that was South Africa. I went to Australia. I went to Sydney. I went to 5 countries I've never been to before: South
Okay.
Africa, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and Canada.
Okay.
Australia, I wanted to see obviously Sydney and Melbourne, but I also wanted to see the Great Barrier Reef. I wanted
Ah.
to see awesome nature,
Yeah.
right? Nature that I'm not likely to see again, potentially, right?
Yeah.
Um, I'd like to, but cost, time, etc.
Yeah.
Right? So I went to New Zealand. Again, an amazingly beautiful landscape. Flew over in a small plane, flew over the glaciers in the Southern Alps. It was just absolutely mind blowing.
I can imagine.
And then Japan. Um, I visited obviously Osaka, the food capital. Amazing food.
Oh.
Tokyo. I went Mount Fuji. I went to Kanazawa. Got into the samurai history and all, and how they thought and did things. And I went to Hiroshima for a reason as well, not just
Yeah.
because of the A bomb, but because Hiroshima is a new city. I
Built.
mean, it was
Yeah.
incinerated. It was
Yeah.
incinerated by the A bomb.
Yeah.
And so that for me was an amazing kind of resurrection. It's a phoenix like resurrection, right?
Mm.
And in Canada, I obviously from Tokyo, I went to Vancouver. In Canada, what took my breath away was the Rocky Mountains. Absolutely stunning, particularly the Icefields Parkway from
Oh.
Jasper to Lake Louise. Oh my God. 3.5 hours, a coach tour, right? It felt like 10 minutes. Those
Oh.
mountains, I was like fixed on them. Mountains, trees, lakes. The lakes, the color, definitely photoshopped by God.
Yeah.
It was
Hey,
just
there's a title
amazing,
for your photo book, Photoshopped by God or something. Yeah.
right? I mean, yeah, it was just amazing. And then
Yeah.
finishing it off in Quebec City with good French food and wine, it was amazing. So
Yeah.
yeah, that in a nutshell, that was my trip.
So you mentioned one of your stops was Japan. Did you take another look at, because I know that the concept of ikigai, if I'm saying that correctly, it has a big
Yeah.
hold on your life and you use it with your
Yes.
clients. Were you able to
Yes.
kind of explore that while you were there?
Interestingly, yes and no. The original place for ikigai is Okinawa. I did
Mm.
not go to Okinawa,
That's an island, but
and
about
it's not because
100 miles away or something, right? Or
it's very south, and it would
okay.
have. I only had 3 weeks there. I mean, three
Yeah.
weeks is a long time, but Japan is a big place,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there's a lot to see in Japan, and I had to be very selective. So I had to drop Okinawa. I had to drop Tasmania in Australia with 2 weeks there. There's only so much you can do,
Yeah.
and you have to be very selective. And so I didn't choose Okinawa. But interestingly enough, I learned about the samurai, and there's a lot of good stuff with the samurai, right? And with Ikigai as well. And interestingly enough, I think even the Japanese struggle with that.
Oh,
We're not alone.
okay.
They
Oh,
too
good.
struggle with that, right?
I mean, not good, but
Um,
yeah.
yeah, because they're also everybody's running after the buck.
Yeah.
Everybody's trying to make a living. Everybody, and so a lot of these good things fall by the wayside because people think, well, it's not really that important. The money
Yeah.
is more important. Well, in your working life, maybe when you're putting food on the table, et cetera, et cetera. But I think when you kind of move into elderhood, um, you need to take distance to see things. For me, this adventure of going around the world in 80 days was not just an adventure; it was an inventure.
Oh.
I did a lot of journaling,
Yeah.
right? I observed in Japan, and that's why I chose Japan because I don't speak Japanese. And when you're out in the countryside, right, they don't speak English. Now, thank God for Google Translate. Oh my God. Well, Google Maps and Google Translate.
Right, right.
I was up the creek without a paddle. Without them, I was in trouble. But the point is that you suddenly realize what it feels like to be an immigrant, what it
Yeah.
feels like not to be able to speak the language. That doesn't make you stupid,
No,
right?
yeah. Right,
So
right.
our perception when we see immigrants who can't speak English, right? The
Mhm.
automatic perception is, well, they're not smart.
And five minutes
Um,
in another country when you're the one in that position and you get it, you know?
it's a wake up call, and
Yeah.
you really recognize, okay? And it's very humbling because I was watching James May, who's an English travel guy, and he's from that driving program, the British driving program. I don't know if you ever watched it. He travels in Japan and does some crazy things.
Yeah.
But he said, I was watching his stuff before I went to Japan, and he said, um, if you want to get through in Japan, if you want people to help you, the one word that opens the gates for everything is the word sumimasen,
Oh.
which is pardon me, excuse me, I'm sorry. And then you ask what you're going to ask.
Really?
And
That'll set the right tone or something? Or
it's like, well, take yourself on a street of your hometown. If somebody stops you and says, I'm sorry, could you help me? You can't really help yourself, but try and
yeah.
help them, whatever it is
Right.
that they've got, right? Um,
Completely.
so so going to a foreign country where you can't speak the language is useful because it makes you humble. And
Yeah.
it's actually not such a bad thing to be. It opens your eyes.
Well, first of all, I there's that great Mark Twain quote, "Travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness," which I think is kind of what you're getting
Totally,
at.
totally. I
Yeah.
have to say it did that for me to a great extent because obviously I haven't done such an epic travel as this one. But even in places like South Africa and Australia, New Zealand, and even Canada, I found myself not being biased and not comparing.
Yeah.
And when you stop comparing, you actually get to enjoy where you are. It's magic. And so I've got this crazy idea. I don't know if it's going to work, but I'm going to try it. Is to create travel with education at this stage in life with
Ah,
about 20 people.
okay.
So you can have, there'll be obviously wonderful bonding between 20 people going on a journey of this epic proportion. Instead of 5 countries, maybe, I don't know, 4 or 8 countries and do singular things, specific and kind of do my dare method in the process just once a week for half a day and then try to implement that
Oh,
over
okay.
that week.
Well, we're gonna have to
So,
check back in. I wanna see how this goes.
I have no idea where it's
Yeah,
going. I'm
yeah.
flying blind here.
You're right.
Yeah.
Hey, that isn't that part of but taking chances is probably a part of staying alive, right?
It's about exactly. And here's the thing, when we retire, because the money spigot is off, money becomes a big issue. So we start to cancel anything that's not essential.
Yeah.
Subscriptions, all sorts of things start to stop. Right? Our sandbox starts to get smaller and smaller and smaller. And we've got another 25 years to go.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, from the financial standpoint alone, right? Um, you know, the traditional route for financial planning is that after you retire, you need to start moving into liquid assets out of equities and high risk. You've got
Yeah.
another 25 years to go. You cannot leave equities and high risk. Life is a risk, right?
Yeah.
And taking no risk is the biggest risk of all.
Right. That's what people don't understand, I think.
Well, that's this. So, in other words, the landscape has changed because of longevity. So, it's not just your life that has to be reshaped, but even your financial planning has to reflect that. So,
Yeah.
instead of getting the financial plan done and then trying to work your life, you actually should be working on your life first and then making sure your financial plan is mirroring what you're trying to do.
Right. God, that's a hard one to
It's hard
rewire.
because
Yeah.
even financial advisors are stuck in a cubicle because of legislation and because of they need to be compliant.
Yeah.
But the people who are running the compliance have no idea, or
Right.
they're not they're not with it. The whole system is still working on an old map,
Yeah.
and there's a new map out here, right? And these changes, because it's money, because there's concept of litigation, right? And the insurance and financial services industry, it's all about cover my ass. Litigation. Everybody is worried about what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So, everybody waits for the big bang,
Right.
something to go really bad. So then everybody at the top will think, okay, now we need to reconfigure.
Right.
But
Yeah.
nobody takes the initiative because nobody wants to take the risk.
Right.
Does that remotely make sense?
Oh, yeah. And I think it sort of transitions us into, because I did want to get into a little bit. You mentioned your dare method, and kind of what you're talking about right now was the discover
Right.
part. So dare is
Yeah.
discover, assimilate, rewire, and expand. So how did you come to that, and how do you help others become happier using that?
I went on my personal journey of discovery when I discovered, after a long time of semi retirement, that this is not fun. This sucks. I hate it. I feel overlooked. I don't feel I'm engaged mentally or socially. Um, it wasn't a good place.
Yeah.
So I went on a 30-day silent retreat. I think we may have covered that at some
Yeah.
point. Um, and on the back of that, I realized that I'm not who I think I am.
Yeah.
We have this
That's a
concept
scary
of
moment,
who
right?
we think. Well, the thing is that there are many parts to us. We're not sort of fixed. We like to think we're fixed because we need to look strong. We need to look good. We need to look um solid. But we're not. We're none of those. But it's an image that gives us comfort,
Yeah.
gives us security, right? And it gives the people around us the security they require because we need to be like rocks,
Yeah.
especially guys. We need to be rocks, right? It's bull. We're not rocks. In fact, we're actually really nice guys. We're, when you take the masks off,
Right.
okay? So that led me to learning about mindset change with Bob Proctor, the late Bob Proctor in Canada. I worked with him and with his method for about 18 months. And then I realized that I have a niche market, which is retired people, people like me, older people. I can't serve everyone. So I had to narrow down the people that I serve. And I chose retired people. They were not my first choice. I promise you, they were not. You
Interesting,
know,
okay.
my idea of retired people were grumpy old sods. Not for
So,
me.
you were still thinking of it that way at the time?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
absolutely. You don't know what you don't know until you know.
Right, right.
And so it's an evolution. And so I decided that, okay, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to figure out. And so I was working with my marketing team, and we were talking about how do we get these components together. And one of the advertising people was a young woman, really bright, turned around and I said, what's the methodology here? How can I encapsulate this to make it easy to understand and remember what I'm doing? And she said, it's the DARE, D-A-R-E. It's the 4-step process you've got. Discover, assimilate, rewire, expand. It's a mindset change. That's all it is. Now, other people, you have retirement coaches who teach you about coaching you and keeping you accountable, right? And there are hundreds of retirement coaches, and some of them have their own methodologies, right? This
Yeah,
is a huge elephant. This market is so big. People are coming in from different angles. There are people who are transition coaches. They help you make that transition. That's an emotional journey. It's about creating new stories. Again, partly mindset too, right?
yeah.
And so I lost my thread. No, I didn't. Dare. Interestingly enough, dare is another word for courage.
Yeah.
And you need courage in order to move from this comfortable place that will eventually lead you to oblivion, or go through some challenging times to recreate yourself, right? Either way, it's not easy.
Yeah.
But this way, to have a new beginning, there's a lot of upside for you
Yeah.
from the get go, even though there are challenges, right? And I like to tell clients that you got to think of this as a sea voyage. Ships were not meant to be in harbor,
Right. Oh,
they
yeah.
rot.
Yeah.
Ships are meant to be out in the ocean. But when we're in the ocean, we've lost sight of land and there's no new land out there, right? We've got challenges. There are storms that are going to test us. They're going to bring fear, terror, make us feel things that we've never felt before, potentially.
Right.
We'll be stuck perhaps in the doldrums in the southern Atlantic Ocean, and we're stuck there for days and weeks, and we can't get out, and it's doing our head in. We want to move, but there's no wind. We'll experience that too.
Yeah.
But ultimately, if you hold on, if you don't freak out and throw yourself overboard, or, take your life, or, just chuck it in, you will come to land
Isn't
and a
that
new
it?
beginning.
Isn't that interesting because like that ship metaphor is perfect because while you're out there doing kind of what you're meant to do, you're thinking about if I could just get back to port, I'd be happy.
Absolutely. Oh
Yeah.
my God, that burger was so good.
Yeah.
You know, at port, the wine,
Yeah.
whatever it is that you miss, which you don't have now, right, will be eating away at you. And you need to be mentally and emotionally strong to just say, this will pass.
Yeah.
This will pass. All right.
Right.
And in a sense, When you look back, your future self will thank you for for having the courage to have pushed out, right? And to use that shipping analogy, the ship analogy, it's also same with the rudder.
Ah.
If you want to go right, you've got to press it left. You almost have to
Oh,
do the opposite, the counterintuitive thing in order to move forward. And it's okay to make mistakes, right? That's another thing. When we get older, we don't want to make mistakes because our ego and, we've got this far. We don't want to risk by looking like a fool.
yeah.
But even in the tarot cards, the fool is the new beginning.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So
Oh,
what I'm saying is that we need to risk. We need to risk who we thought we were because who we thought we were is gone anyway. You're not
right.
risking it, actually. That's just in your head. Who you were is gone. You're never going to get that back. It's
Yeah.
over. So why not start a new beginning? Take that risk, start a new beginning, all right? Because this isn't about not failing. This is about you don't want to get to your deathbed and find out I haven't lived.
Exactly.
And the best is yet to come, is what I would say. If you
Because
can believe it.
we think about the risk of starting a new beginning, but we don't really think about the risk of not starting a new beginning. That risk is almost higher.
It is higher and it's much worse.
Yeah.
But we don't know that. And if you don't, you know what it is? It's you don't know what you don't know. But once you know and you realize the risks involved and you have the courage to actually look at it truthfully, because we are very good at lying to ourselves
Yeah.
when it's inconvenient. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know you're right, but not just yet. Not just,
Right.
when my kids are grandparents, then yeah,
Yeah.
sure thing. Yeah, nobody likes taking risks. But life is a risk, and the biggest risk is not taking a risk.
Yeah.
You know, having that job that is, you don't really enjoy in retirement, but it's supplementing your income, but you hate the job. Um, you're unhappy, you're stuck, but you still don't want to take a risk.
Yeah.
Because the unhappiness is far better than the happiness that out there that might be there. Believe me, I know because I've been there. I've been through all that emotional roller coaster. I totally get it.
Yeah.
I totally get it.
I imagine as you're someone who helps other people become a happier person and as they age. But just like with your 80-day trip, every once in a while you realize, wait a minute, I'm not doing the things that I know are the
Sure.
things to do. So, what are some other examples of things you've done for yourself? Like maybe it could be something even simple like I started playing tennis or what kind of things do you do for yourself to be this new person, this happy
Okay.
person?
That's a really good question, Ryan. Over my 80-day trip, I started to say to myself, I've got to do things that I would not normally do. Right? Not bungee jumping or doing crazy things. No, I'm talking about small things, right?
Yeah.
Small things. It's the small things, right? For example, our our minds start to slowly shrink as we age. We don't want to take risks.
Yeah.
Even with the food we eat, we want to eat food that we've always been accustomed to. How can you grow? So when I was in South Africa, I tried kudu, which is a large antelope. I tried ostrich steak, which
Ah,
was cooked really well. I mean, I would not have been able, if I hadn't been told it was ostrich, because it had been cooked so well. I was in ostrich country in South Africa in this particular place. It was an ostrich farm. You're going to love this one. I was at an ostrich farm and they served me this ostrich steak, with two vegetables and potatoes. It was delicious, but it tasted like filet mignon.
Really?
It was lit, yeah, because it was really well cooked. Lots of butter, lots of wine. Hey, you put me in there, I'd taste good too. The point is that if I cooked it, it'd be like rubber chicken, but it was delicious. But here's the thing: I spoke with the fourth generation ostrich farmer, and I asked him. I said, "Yeah." He was talking about how the males, I believe, have dark feathers, and the females have gray feathers, something like that, or vice versa. I can't remember. But the long shot of it is, I then said to him, I've always heard about these ostriches putting their heads in the sand.
Yeah, yeah.
Do they do that? And he said, that is a load of cobblers. He said, in 40 years that I have been an ostrich farmer, not a single time have I ever seen an ostrich put their head in the sand. He said, the only people who do that are politicians. And I went, okay, here's another story that's become a myth and everybody uses it. Don't be an ostrich, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Don't be an ostrich. Well, they're not the smartest animals and their brains are smaller than their eyes. So, but, you know, to use Mark Twain again, the man that you quoted, he said, never let the facts get in the way of a good story.
Right.
Clearly, this is a perfect example of that. So I started questioning what other things have we been taught that's just been made up? It does make you stop and think, does it not?
It does. I'm just thinking about how by eating the ostrich, you were not being the ostrich with its head in the sand because you you were trying something new.
I was trying new things. Here's an example. In 1,000 years, I would never cycle in the rain.
Okay.
But I was in Vancouver, and they have a huge park called Stanley Park. I mean,
Yeah.
it is enormous in the middle of the city. And my travel agent thought it was a good idea that I do cycling for 3 hours with this group. And Vancouver's known for its rain. I mean, it's not, I mean, it's Raincouver, right? It's just rain.
Yeah.
So on that particular day, it was a Sunday, it was raining, cats and dogs. And I thought, oh shit, I don't really want to do this. I do not want to do this. I go, George, you have to do it. Come on. Come on. You know you can do it. Come on. Do it. So I got myself out, went to the cycle shop where we're supposed to meet. We got ponchos and everything else so we could be covered. And we went to Stanley Park and we cycled. It was a glorious 3 hour ride, really entertaining, but it pissed down the whole 3 hours.
Oh my god.
And you know what? I changed my mindset. I was going, this is fun. You almost have to bring that childlike enthusiasm within you that it doesn't really care. Okay, so what? My jeans are soaked. My ass is soaked. I've got this poncho and I'm comfortable. I'm not wet. But you're having fun.
Yeah, yeah.
And we were learning things about the forest, the trees, the history of the place, and it was engaging. It was wonderful. So again, it's about pushing out of your comfort zone. And here's the thing: if you look at security and adventure, right, they're on the opposite side.
Yeah.
The more security you want, the less fun you're going to have in life. And culturally, right, we've been pushed to, the fear buttons on everything have been pressed.
Mhm.
So everybody now is security, security, security. Yeah. And everybody's lost that sense of adventure and fun, which is part
Yeah.
of life, right? I mean, what's the
Yeah.
point of living um, in a fortified fortress, right? Because you're afraid of everything, germs, people. And you go into this sort of, you're in a prison of your own making.
Yeah.
Life is a risk. Shit will happen. And it's okay.
Yeah,
You know,
because what are you gonna live you might be safe, but safe and miserable, there's gotta be some balance there, right?
there has to be a balance. Listen, I'm security conscious like anybody else,
Yeah.
but there are limits. When security is trumping your life and your freedom and your joy,
Mhm.
that is not security. That is jail.
Yeah,
You're doing jail time
yeah.
for committing the sin of being an idiot. That's what happens. Do you see where I'm
Right.
coming from?
Yes,
I
without
mean, I don't know. I'm
possibility of
just,
parole, yeah.
yeah. Guess what? Because you're the warden. You're the prison warden. You've
Yes.
just sentenced yourself to jail time. I
Yeah,
mean, it's crazy.
yeah. So, you do so many amazing things, that I'm sure you can't do every day. So, like, what's a typical day for you? I mean, how do you stay happy when you're not, eating ostrich meat on or some far-flung
Okay.
country?
Yeah. Um, I do Zoom meetings regularly a
Okay.
lot. Either, interviews or client meetings or meetings with the people around me that work with me. I subcontract all my work. I have no employees.
Ah,
Everybody's, yeah. That's where I am. Where is this going to lead? I don't know. But I've always imagined or visualized that I'm going to be working with a financial institution
okay.
that's going to revamp how they look after their clients, not portfolio so much, but the incorporation of the non-financial aspects of post-retirement life with the financial. I think it's almost like, this is a bird with two wings, and so far it's been flying on one wing. Um,
Yeah,
if that makes sense. And
yeah.
for me, the joy is going to come into training the trainers.
Oh, so you get the joy in addition to helping people get joy, that
Yeah,
brings
I
you
mean,
joy.
I love the idea of, making this much bigger, but I'm 69. I ain't taking this with me. And I don't want to kill myself either.
Yeah.
I want to have fun. I want to have fun and I want to work with an organization. Okay, this is my long-term plan is to find an organization, a financial organization of some sort, with whom I resonate
Yeah, okay.
and to create a plan for how they can become leaders in this space by somersaulting above all their competitors.
Okay. You live in London, right?
Yeah, but I'm now a global citizen. After my round the world in 80 days, I am, I am, I'm going to have a kind of a residence wherever that might be. I don't know yet.
Oh,
And
okay.
I will happily travel. That's how I would like. I mean, this is what this journey has done for me. It's pushed the envelope. I've said before the journey, I would have been skeptical of overdoing things, but flying around the world, four times in flights that over 12 hours and coming out of those flights totally fresh.
Really?
In the past, 10 years ago, it would have done my head in.
You've cured jet lag?
I tell you something. I don't believe I had jet lag at all on any of my flights. It's bizarre. I can't explain it. Don't ask me to break it down. I don't understand.
Yeah.
But I think my enthusiasm and joy of going on this journey. Oh, I'm going to throw something else in here.
Oh, okay.
On those long flights, I was put in the middle seat.
Oh.
I haven't been in the middle seat since I was 4. Okay?
Yeah.
Believe me, I have not ever been in a middle seat. For me, that's kind of like it's a suicide job.
Yeah, yeah.
And, and somehow on the first flight I was at, because I got a global ticket and I chose economy. I didn't go first class. I didn't go to 5-star hotels, right?
Yeah.
I went economy. I stayed in 3-star, 4-star hotels, Airbnbs, Japanese ryokans. So I try to keep costs down because, I don't want to go nuts.
Yeah.
And so I was sitting down on my first flight. It's a 12-hour flight from London to Cape Town, middle seat. I was not happy. Bastards, putting me in a middle seat. And I go, George, you can't do this to yourself. You're here in the middle seat for a reason. You're on a journey to experience. I changed the narrative.
Yeah.
I got chatting to the people next to me. Before I knew it, the plane was landing in Cape Town.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So, I'm just sort of giving it's a mindset thing. If we pivot, changes the whole equation in our living, not just in our. And so it and there's what therapists would call headroom. When you're stressed, the smallest thing, it's just like
Oh, it feels like a giant dramatic.
everything is
Yeah.
inflated. Everything is, it's the end of the world. But when you got headroom, you're chilled, you're zen, and things look very different. And every time on my journey when things went wrong, I'd go, this was meant to be. Something better is going to come. And invariably it did. I kid you not.
If you've solved the middle seat problem, first of all, you deserve $1 billion, and I think you found the secret to life. As we wrap up, is there any other advice you want to give before we go, like to help people just take the leap and be happy as they head into this
Yeah.
older period of their life?
Yeah. I tell you, one of my favorite ones right now is uh, out of a poem by the American poet laureate Mary Oliver, who said, what will you do with your one wild and precious life? What will you do with your one wild and precious life? Everybody thinks tomorrow, next year's guaranteed. Nothing's guaranteed. None of us are guaranteed that we will wake up tomorrow morning. Each day is a lifetime. Why are you wasting it?
Uh, and George, where can people find you if they want to get some more of these gems?
Um, GeorgeJerjian.com.
And that's
GeorgeJerjian.com. Yeah. J.
JerJian.
Correct. Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the Happiest Retirees podcast. I can't thank you enough for coming on I mean, most people have not lived as much as you, even if they've lived longer. So, just to absorb some of your amazing travels and experiences, I know it's going to change my life.
Ryan, really, it's been great fun being on this show. Thank you so much.